election, a lot of attention was drawn on the gubernatorial race in North Carolina. It was a very tight race between the incumbent, Governor Pat McCrory, and the state attorney general, Roy Cooper, who's a Democrat. Now, Roy Cooper won over McCrory by about 10,000 votes. So yes, it was a very tight race, and it took almost a month for the incumbent to concede that he had lost the election. Now, the update to this story is that state lawmakers, the majority of which are Republican, called a special session in order to do a power grab and take away as much power as possible from the governor. Now, let me give you the details on this. In a surprise extra special session on Wednesday called with just hours' notice, the Republican-led North Carolina state legislature introduced measures that would reduce the power of the incoming Democratic governor. So legislation introduced in the State House on Wednesday would mandate that the governor's cabinet appointees be approved by the state Senate and would cut the number of political appointees that serve under the governor from 1,500 to 300. Now, the legislature drastically expanded the number of exempt positions, which are often political in nature, under McCrory in 2013. And the bill would also eliminate the governor's ability to appoint members to the Board of Trustees for the University of North Carolina system and to the State Education Board. Okay, understand that in North Carolina, Republicans have a supermajority. Right?
In the legislatures.
In the legislature. They could essentially pass whatever right-wing garbage they want to pass, right? Now, of course, the governor can veto that type of legislation and not sign it into law, but this is their desperate attempt to take away as much power as possible from a Democratic governor who was elected by the people of North Carolina.
So Trump lost the popular vote, but they're still screaming, mandate, mandate. He's a historic win. Yeah, historically unpopular president-elect. He lost by almost 3 million votes. He won the Electoral College anyway. Now you turn to North Carolina, it was a tight election, just like the presidential election, except this time the guy with more votes actually won. And Republicans are going, oh, no, there's no mandate, there's no anything, I don't care. The will of the voters. I mean, we keep talking about the will of the voters whenever we win, but when we lose, no, screw the voters. I don't care who they voted for. So if you voted for a governor with the current powers that he has, sorry, I'm going to deny you that vote. I'm going to strip him of his powers. And by the way, when McCrory was the governor, they expanded the governor's powers.
Yes, they did.
And Anna's right. The supermajority even means that they could even override the veto of the governor, but not good enough. See, this is the problem with the right wing, that if you allow them, and same thing with fundamentalists, and it's true in so many different countries throughout the world, if you allow them to win any set of elections, then they try to kill democracy right afterwards.
Look, this is related to the story, but I think, you know, even though it's not in the state of North Carolina, it kind of goes to show you how aggressively Republicans fight to make things go their way, to manipulate the system in their favor. Recently, a federal court ruled that the gerrymandering done by Republicans in the state of Wisconsin was purposely done to benefit them. This was one of the first times in a very long time that a federal court ruled that way, because it's very difficult to prove that the gerrymandering benefits one party over the other, right? And so there's case after case of this happening. Again, as Cenk said, they increase the power under the Republican governor, and then as soon as a Democratic governor comes in, they decrease his power.
The gerrymandering is insane throughout the country.
Yes.
They draw districts like this that have nothing to do with how people actually live and what their communities are. And by the way, the number one culprit in gerrymandering is actually the Democratic Party. And you know why? And they screw over their own voters, because Republicans are willing to take more risks to have more power. So they'll say, draw up our districts so we only have a 55 to 45 advantage. Democrats will say, draw up my district so I have an 85 to 90% advantage. So that way I'm guaranteed to be in my seat forever. That means that I have all the Democratic voters in my district, so the other districts have less Democratic voters, and hence you'll have more Republicans. And the Democratic politicians that are in power right now, the establishment Democrats, are like, who cares? We don't want to win on the policy anyway. We don't want to win any of these votes. We have the same damn donors. This is a good excuse for us to retain our power forever and screw over our own voters. So it's not just the Republican. In this case, in North Carolina, it's the Republican Party that's at fault. But throughout the country, the Democrats are even more at fault for the gerrymandering.
Yes. Now let's focus a little more on what lawmakers in North Carolina are trying to do. Now, as you know, Governor Pat McCrory did not like the results of the election, and it took him a very long time to concede. And so one of his arguments was, oh, the election, it was rigged. There's something going on. There's something wrong. And so what Republicans are now doing is they're changing the way the State Board of Elections works. Let's get into that. Republican legislators are also pushing for changes to the State Elections Board. Legislation in the state Senate would merge the State Board of Elections with the Ethics Commission, giving the new board subpoena power. This will eliminate Democrats' control under the State Election Board. Now, how does that happen? Essentially, there were 3 members of this board, and the incoming governor could appoint 2 of those members, and usually that person will choose either Democrats if they're Democrat or Republicans if it's a Republican, right? Now, under this system, there would be 4 members, and it would be split in 2, and it would have to be 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. Now, in this case, they want to ensure that, they have 2 Republicans that are going to go ahead and
vote in their direction.
Vote in their direction.
And by the way, block any reform that you might want to do. So, for example, in North Carolina, they were trying to limit the voting, of course, in mainly Democratic areas, usually minority areas, poor neighborhoods, etc. And so once you deadlock an ethics commission or a voting board, then they never get anything done. And they did this, the Republicans did the same trick at the national level. They took the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, and they deadlocked it. And no matter what the Republicans do to cheat, the Republicans on the FEC go, no, I don't see it. I don't know what you're talking about. No, I'm going to let them do it. Dark money, money that I can't trace, going to campaigns. They're obviously coordinating, right? It's one thing to have dark money. The Supreme Court said that's okay. It's another thing to have a campaign. They're not allowed to coordinate, though. That's illegal. It's obvious coordination. Sometimes they'll just say it, right? And by the way, David Brock did the same thing with Hillary Clinton when they were coordinating with Correct the Record. But everything's deadlocked. So then the Democrats go, nope, I don't see that either. Nothing's illegal anymore. You just do whatever the hell you want in elections. This is why we need election reform. Okay, so these guys and the Democrats here in North Carolina, yeah, they do the standard press release about this is outrageous and it's abuse of power, yada, yada. In my opinion, they're whispering it. So no, you go,
it's worse than that. It's worse than that, okay? And the reason why it's worse than that is because Governor-elect Cooper should be outraged, and he should be completely unwilling to concede in any way, to negotiate in any way, to compromise in any way. But after giving a press conference, after he listed all the different ways that these lawmakers are working against him and taking power away from him that rightfully belongs to him as governor, here's what he had to say. Let's go to video number 3.
I have offered to work with the Republican leadership, and I'm even ready to negotiate compromises if I think the result will make life a little bit better for everyday North Carolinians.
I can't deal with it anymore. I can't deal. Democrats are fundamentally weak. They are fundamentally weak. President Barack Obama was fundamentally weak, concession after concession after concession. I want to work with the Republicans when the Republicans had no interest in working with them. That's the reason why Republicans always get what they want, because they're not weak.
So that reminds me of Dr. David D. Schultz when he slapped John Stossel, right? Something he shouldn't have done. He's a former professional wrestler. He did it to a reporter Stossel. Anyway, and then as Stossel fell down, he looked at him and said, that's an open-handed slap, boy. Mm-hmm. Now, Rory Cooper, that's an open-handed slap, boy. They just took away almost all your power. And I'm willing to negotiate my surrender. And, golly gee, I'm a little outraged, but I'm smiling, and I'll tell you that I'll work with those Republicans. Look, we're not unaware that North Carolina is slightly Republican state. It's not nearly as Republican as it used to be. So yes, they have the supermajority in the legislature, but a Democrat, and a weak Democrat, just won in North Carolina. And North Carolina is starting to swing towards the Democrats for national presidential elections. If Hillary Clinton wasn't such a miserable candidate, she would have had a decent chance of winning North Carolina. President Obama did great in North Carolina, okay? So if you actually had any kind of guts, you know what you do? You do the press conference and go, Oh, so I understand that the Republicans have declared war on democracy. Not on me, but on democracy. And against the North Carolina voters. Look at what they just did to you. The Republicans disrespected you. You put me in this office, and then they said, no, we don't care what you think. We don't care what North Carolina voters think. Well, guess what? Well, we don't care about them either. So next election, come with me. These dark of night Republicans that did this in the middle of the night, you know, now why do you think they did it? And they did it because they said they were going to do hurricane relief. Instead, they did Republican relief. Let's go vote the bums out. And I'll tell you what, anyone who doesn't reverse this, I'm going to go on the warpath against them and make sure they lose. And then I will have a legislature I can work with to make North Carolina great and not have it be tied up in the big government bureaucracy of the Republicans.
Yeah, easy, but they just don't have it in him, right? He does not have it in him. I can't even believe after all of the different things that they listed in this legislation. By the way, 27 bills aimed at stripping power. There's so many of them that I literally can't report on every single one because this video would be 45 minutes long. So after all of that, you're going to talk about negotiations and concessions. It's incredible.
Like I said, it's not just the Republican Party that's at fault. The donors give money to strong Republicans and weak Democrats. And so you produce a system where Republicans nonstop run over Democrats. And I'm goddamn tired of it. Aren't you tired of it? We're going to do something about it soon. So yeah, I know I keep teasing you on this. But there's going to be an announcement soon. We're going to have petitions. And it's not just, believe me, it's not going to just, the petition's just the beginning. We're actually going to take action, okay? And if these Democrats continue to be the weak cowards that they are, step aside. Step aside, Butch. We got this. So I'll tell you more about that as the days go by here. You power the Young Turks. We do this all through membership. tytnetwork.com/join. Let's build the media that we can believe in.